Welcome to God with George Ortega. Um, this is episode number 61. I'm recording it on Sunday, January 17th, 2021 at 5:17 p.m. Eastern Time. And I want to start this episode with what seems to be an unanswerable question. And that is, why is there suffering? Why, if God created, is all powerful. God, created this world, created us. Why would God create suffering? Why would God create sentient beings like us, other animals, who can feel pleasure and pain and then afflict us? Uh, again, part of the understanding that I try to present in this series is that God is everything, God controls everything. We don't really have a free will. Nothing we do is up to us. So it's not like we're doing things really that are wrong. I mean, we are in a certain sense. For whatever reason, God compels us to do things that are wrong and then punishes us. Or, conversely, which is good, God causes us to do good things for which we're rewarded. But, but again, the question is, it seems not answerable. Um, and and to the extent that it seems not answerable, we we may be missing an opportunity to do what really is most fundamental to us in this life. Just basically, and this isn't up to us, we're designed to seek pleasure, to avoid pain. That's who we are, to seek happiness, to enjoy life rather than suffer it. And so there are different kinds of approaches to suffering. For example, one approach is, and this makes sense. This is like, I think, the most conventional approach. I don't think it's necessarily religious. I think it's just so commonsensical, even for atheists, that when things happen that are not pleasurable, that are unpleasurable, we we tend to want them to stop. We tend to want, or to diminish, and, you know, theologically, this may take the form of a prayer to God. God, please stop afflicting me, stop afflicting us. But even to atheists, or non-theists, this would take the form of simple hope or wish, have this stop. And this is like, you know, this is something so basic to us that even infants, infants cry, you know, as an appeal, without any religion involved, any theology, and as an appeal for whatever suffering is going on to end. Crying, of course, is also how they communicate. It's a form of communication, but it's communication for a specific purpose of lessening suffering. So, um, so if we see there are different approaches, like within Buddhist theology or Buddhist thought system. Um, there's the idea that we can transcend suffering by accepting it. If we detach ourselves from it, if we don't identify ourselves with it, then we can basically remove its sting. We'll feel it, but we won't feel it as suffering or as much. Um, and that I think is a productive approach. Except there, even within Judeo-Christian traditions, there's like the serenity prayer that advises us to accept what we can't change as a way of lessening its impact on us. But I think the problem with that is that it may lead to too much acceptance when much can be done. And so like here, and that, that may be part of, like, for example, some of the Buddhist countries, most of the Buddhist countries perhaps are not very rich, not materially rich. They're people there live in relative privation relative to Judeo-Christian countries that have this belief in God, and perhaps are not as likely to resort to acceptance, of suffering. And so the idea is, like, if there's a part of us that doesn't accept suffering, then we individually, collectively can take steps to minimize or overcome it. So, like, but again, I want to get back to the basic question, and why. Imagine you're God, okay? You're God, and you're everything. You're everything that is. You're the only thing that is. This vast universe. That's who and what you are. And you created this world that started 13.8 billion years ago. We're going to limit ourselves to this universe, this known universe, because I think it's a bit too speculative to try to attempt to understand previous universes that are outside of this, which is in a sense illogical. But I think it's helpful to limit ourselves. So, like, you create this universe, 2 to 3 trillion galaxies, and in some of the star systems like ours, you create sentient beings like us who are capable of pain and pleasure. And so why, and so the important thing to understand within this, it's not like God is causing another entity to suffer. Here, on Earth, we can sometimes cause ourselves to suffer, we can cause other people to suffer. But with God, there's only, God is everything. So if God is causing any suffering, then that means God is causing God to suffer. God is, and so, like, certainly when we say to ourselves, well, we as humans sometimes afflict ourselves, it's always either mistakenly or an investment in greater pleasure. For example, somebody may choose to train for a marathon, run however many miles each day, and then run 26 miles for the marathon, endure a lot of pain, because they are predicting that having done that, that's an investment in their future pleasure, to the pride of having done that, the pride of overcoming the pain to achieve that goal. So sometimes we afflict ourselves. But that's as human beings. I mean, you have to remember, God, we as human beings are not all powerful. We can't, we're limited by so many, things that actually God controls. So, like, but if you're God, God easily, I would imagine, could have created human beings and other life forms to completely feel blissful all the time, never do anything wrong, not be capable of feeling pain. That's theoretically possible for an all-powerful God. That's theoretically possible for a God who created this known universe. And over, I mean, God is omniscient, right? So, like, before God created this universe, God knew that 300 million years ago, God would cause to evolve these decapods, these lobsters, crabs, 10-limbed organisms who are the first on Earth capable of feeling pleasure and pain. Before that, whatever organisms existed didn't felt neither. They're like rocks, they're like inanimate matter. But so, like, so, why would God do that? And again, the first answer, of course, is like, well, who can fathom the mind of God? God is ineffable. And well, maybe not in some ways. Like, for example, they, to put this in some context, how did we discover God? By asking questions to which answers didn't perhaps seem that apparent. For example, like before monotheism, before understanding that there is one God controlling everything, our understanding as more primitive people was that, for example, the wind, we noticed the wind blowing. And so, like, what caused the wind to blow? Well, a wind god. And so, like, in this sense, you have to understand that God, in this sense, is simply the cause. The wind god causes wind, the rain god causes rain, the sun god causes the sun to to you know to come up, to go down, and all this stuff. So that was their, these gods, these multiple gods were primitive people's very rational, very, very accurate actually, explanation for why things happen. They back then understood what we understand now, that nothing just happens. There's always a cause to whatever happens. So, so after a while, they became a bit more intellectually and well, I guess through Judaism, through Abraham, and I can't really say that it was a logical deduction rather than a divine inspiration that was, outside of logic, but the logical understanding came to everyone eventually that you have a wind god, a rain god, uh, a heat god, a cold god, whatever happens, there's a god to it. And then people figured out, well, there's order in this universe. The Greeks kind of understood these gods that constantly in battle with each other, even though they had like Zeus was their main god, but Zeus wasn't all powerful, But but what primitive people came to understand, all right, it's fine. The rain god causes rain, so then the question became, what causes the rain god to cause rain, and what causes the sun god to cause the sun to exist? And that's where they came to the what we understand now as a rational conclusion that a governing supreme God that has power over all these quote unquote gods, these, you know, I don't know, demigods, whatever, these smaller gods, is necessary logically. Um, God, there are forces of nature in science. There are different forces, and there's an understanding, although we haven't gotten there, that there's one general force that controls them all. And we can define this as God, but that's outside of science. So, all right, let's try to pull this back to suffering. Um, so, so we've got this, this God that is everything, and we're still trying to understand, why in the world would God afflict God? Now, we might say to ourselves, well, I mean, God is so immense. Again, God is all of the 2 to 3 trillion galaxies, each with 2 to 300 billion stars. So causing some suffering for a relatively brief period of time relative to eternity, 300 million years, is so inconsequential that to God, our suffering, even God is us, we're God, is so trivial that, why even bother? Like God can handle this pain. But that's not, I don't think that's a satisfying answer. Because still, and then, I guess we have to, like, another question is like, well, we and other sentient beings here on this planet Earth, because we can only guess at, at what happens on other planets that have life, but we here basically suffer, and and it could be that God doesn't suffer outside of us. That God, when I refer to God as everything, you know, the amount of suffering that God feels is like, imagine, let's say you're 50 years old. Imagine 1 second of those 50 years, just 1 second, literally 1 second, you suffered. Okay. Um, that's not much. Or imagine within this just the idea that like we as humans are just not very consequential in terms of our the part of the universe that we inhabit, the part of God. So as you see, I'm grappling with this, and like what's interesting is like I'm losing my train of thought a bit, and that and so God. Now you got to, again, this is about God, and this is just as much about my better understanding God as it is about hopefully your better understanding God. So what's happening, what appears to be happening, is God is like, I'm not choosing to lose my train of thought. I'm not choosing to kind of like to begin to present a point or an argument, and then lose sight of what exactly the point or the direction of that discourse was or is. Um, and it's God that's doing that. So like, and interestingly, again, like I'm talking about suffering today because like we're like, you know, a few days out from this insurrection on the Capitol, and the the same group, kind of like vowed to attack capitalists today. They vowed to attack the inauguration, and I'm not worried about that because I've read in the news that the Capitol is very secure, 25,000 National Guard. These guys, like, you know, good luck if they want to come up against that kind of force. But what upsets me is that I guess what upsets me is like, the lies that they believe that cause them to do what they believe they believe they're doing right. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is like, this hasn't been the best of day. I think I'm a little anxious. Maybe after the 2020th, when Biden's new president, maybe I'll feel a bit more relaxed. But this has been a bit difficult day, and that's why I'm addressing this subject of suffering, because there's so many other subjects related to God that we can talk about. And so what's happening? All right, so it's not just, and this is like, again, we've got to ask these questions because like we may think that there's no answer, but by asking over and over again, there may be. That's actually how science works. People, like, 200 years ago, they asked some questions and they were so far from the answers. Now it's like common, scientific knowledge. But the curious thing now is like, all right, fine. So like, we're trying to figure out how to overcome pain. When we're trying to figure out why God causes suffering, not for out of curiosity, not just, basically, or at least my intent is, by this understanding, to lessen suffering, to enhance happiness and pleasure. So again, so what's happening now, as I'm asking these questions, God apparently is making it more difficult by occasionally causing me to lose my train of thought, or by perhaps throughout this presentation not giving me the thoughts that I need to properly understand this. And I think this is an important point. Um, in other episodes in the past, we've explained how our thoughts, the thoughts we have, don't just arise within our mind that we're not causing them. Basically, they're God manifesting God's thoughts through us. Um, whatever thought I have, whatever thought you have, the reason you have it is because God put it into your mind. And that's, you can see this causally, that basically, like, reality is causal, and that, like, the Big Bang caused the next moment of the universe, the next moment of the universe caused the subsequent moment, and that moment caused the sub. So, like, you can see it as this evolution where any thought you have was the direct result of the state of the universe previously, that the previous moment, which was the result of the previous moment before that. But you can also see it as God being omnipotent, omniscient, and knowing exactly, before the universe was created, what you were going to say, actually compelling you to think and say whatever you're saying. But so again, the question becomes, if God is powerful and all knowing, God could just give me the answer. Let's assume there's an answer to why God is causing us to suffer. And let's assume that it's not a half answer, it's not just a platitude, it's not just something designed to make us feel better, to ameliorate this condition, but it's more of, it's the answer, it's the right answer. So I don't think there's anything within our human physiology, or even in our evolution as a being, a species, or civilization, that precludes God giving us, through me, through whomever, through all of us, this answer right now. And so 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 we have, like, two questions. Why does God cause us to suffer? Why does God cause us to not understand why we're suffering, why God has caused this suffering? Um, and So I'm waiting for God to give me something reasonably intelligent to say after that. And no, it's kind of a blank. But that's I think a point. When you meditate, sometimes, I've meditated for like 46 years about. When you meditate, sometimes you get to these moments where you're kind of like losing consciousness. You're just like, you're being, and there's not really any thoughts that you're thinking. You're just being. And that seems similar to what to this gap of thought and understanding that I'm experiencing, at least relative to trying to figure out this problem of suffering. Um, and you gotta, like, you have to understand that, like, if you try to answer a question and you start with the wrong premise, you're gonna get the wrong answer. Uh, let's see if I can come up with. You understand that? It's like, relative to this, for example, if you believe that we humans have a free will, um, then yes, your answer to this is pretty obvious. Well, we're doing things that are evil, that are, sinful, immoral, and God is punishing us, causing us to suffer because of this. And yes, that God does this. God does cause us to do evil things and punishes us. That seems to be the way the world works. That's pretty obvious. But if you believe in free will, you're not getting that God is causing us to do this wrong thing, this immoral act, immoral thought that brings this suffering. So then, like, this idea that we have a free will and we deserve our suffering, ultimately isn't the answer, because it's emerging from a mistaken premise that God is not omnipotent, that God's will is not the only will, that we have a free will. So And unfortunately, and that, I think that's really telling because, like, I've devoted about 10 years to trying to help the world understand that we don't have a free will for many good reasons. And one of them is that, yes, you know, if we're trying to find the answer to suffering, and if there is an answer, but we're starting with the wrong premise, we're going to get the wrong answer. There's a joke of this guy who lost his keys, and he's looking um, on a street corner under this light for the keys, and some guy comes by and asks him, um, what are you doing? He says, I'm looking for my keys. I lost my keys. And the guy asks, well, where do you think you lost them? And the guy says, well, I think I lost them over there. Then the guy asks, well, why are you looking for them here? And the guy says, well, because the light's better here. So so again, it's kind of like, if we're looking in the wrong place for our answers, we're not going to find them. That's the value of understanding the free will. That's one value of understanding the free will is an illusion. It'll get us to understand the nature of reality more accurately. So if there is an answer to suffering, and maybe there is, maybe like by understanding why God created suffering, that could lead us to, let's say, a physiological, psychochemical kind of a process that allows us, in some way that I can't explain, uh, to transcend suffering. Interesting, there's some people who have what's known as hypothymic personality. And it's not a disease, it's a condition that some people are very fortunate and they're like very happy all the time. So that would tell you that physiologically, in our current state as human beings, we have the physiology to transcend much, if not all, the suffering that we. All right, um, a minute left. I don't know how much closer I've gotten, you've gotten to understanding why God causes suffering. I'm not, I can't say I feel very, all that confident that we've gotten really, but so much can be happening behind the scenes. Again, like our unconscious mind is taking all this in and working with it in ways that we're not really conscious of. So maybe we're making progress without our knowing. All right, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. Watch this series every Monday through Friday on White Plains Community Media Channel 76 if you get Optimum, 45 if you get Verizon, and they're on YouTube. A couple days ago I uploaded all the episodes. So there's 60 episodes up there now. I'll probably upload this one soon, and I'm not sure what God will have me talking about next time, but we'll see when that happens. Thanks for watching. See you soon.